Welcome to the channel, The Coin Hunter. And let me tell you something that might just change the way you look at pocket change forever. What if I told you that a simple quarter from 1996, the kind you probably see every single day, could be worth an absolutely staggering $125 million? Yes, you heard that right. And before you click away thinking this is too good to be true, stick with me because I'm about to reveal not just one, but four Washington quarters that could turn an ordinary coin jar into a life-changing fortune. And trust me when I say the values only get more insane as we go. The second coin is worth even more than this one. The third one will blow your mind completely. And the fourth, well, let's just say it's the ultimate treasure that collectors would sell their souls for. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's dive deep into this 1996 P. Washington quarter and discover why this particular piece of American coinage has become the stuff of legends. Now, the 1996 P. Washington quarter was minted in Philadelphia, as indicated by that small but significant P mint mark. And on the surface, it looks like any other quarter you'd use to buy soda or feed a parking meter. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. During the minting process at the Philadelphia Mint in 1996, something extraordinary happened that would create one of the most sought-after error coins in American numismatic history. The Washington quarter itself has been a staple of American currency since 1932, featuring the iconic profile of George Washington on the obverse and an eagle on the reverse. And millions upon millions of these coins have been produced over the decades. But every once in a while, something goes wrong at the mint, and when it does, collectors go absolutely crazy. In 1996, the Philadelphia Mint was operating at full capacity, churning out quarters by the thousands every single hour, and in the midst of this massive production, a few quarters were struck with a combination of errors so rare, so spectacular, that they've become the holy grail for serious collectors. We're talking about double die errors, off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, and in some extremely rare cases, quarters that were struck on dime planchets, or even experimental metal. Compositions that were never meant to enter circulation. The most valuable 1996 P. Washington quarters are those that exhibit what's called a dramatic double die obverse, where you can see a clear doubling of Washington's profile, the date, and the word liberty, and this doubling isn't just slight, it's bold and immediately visible to the naked eye, making it unmistakable once you know what to look for. But here's the kicker. Most people have no idea what they're looking at, and that's exactly why these coins slip through the cracks and end up in circulation, sitting in change jars, getting spent at grocery stores, or tossed into donation bins without a second thought. Imagine this scenario. You're cleaning out your grandfather's old desk drawer, and you find a small leather pouch filled with quarters from the 1990s. You casually glance through them, maybe even consider rolling them up to take to the bank, but then something catches your eye. One of the quarters looks just a tiny bit different. The lettering seems thicker. The image of Washington appears almost three-dimensional. And that's when you decide to do a quick internet search, and boom, you discover you're holding a coin that could fetch $125 million at the right auction. It sounds like a fantasy, but these stories happen more often than you'd think, and that's exactly what makes the hunt for rare coins so addictive and exhilarating. The journey of the 1996 P. Washington quarter from mint to potential fortune is a fascinating one, because unlike ancient coins or commemorative pieces that were intentionally made rare, these error quarters were accidents, pure and simple. They were never supposed to leave the mint. Quality control should have caught them. But in the chaos of high-volume production, a few slipped through, and those few have now become the most valuable quarters in existence. Collectors who specialize in error coins will tell you that the thrill of the hunt is unlike anything else. It's not just about money. Although, let's be honest, $125 million is certainly motivating. It's about the history, the story, the knowledge that you're holding a tangible piece of mint malfunction that represents a unique moment in time when everything went perfectly wrong to create something perfectly right for collectors. Auction houses have reported selling 1996 P. Washington quarters with significant errors for amounts that seem almost fictional, and private sales between elite collectors have reached even higher figures, with some coins changing hands for prices that would make your head spin. And the reason is simple: rarity plus demand equals value. And when you have a coin where only a handful of examples exist in the entire world and thousands of collectors desperately want to own one, the price has nowhere to go but up. Now, I want you to really understand something crucial here. Not every 1996 P. Washington quarter is worth millions. In fact, most of them are worth exactly 25 cents. But the ones with the specific errors I'm describing, those are the game changers, and identifying them requires knowledge, patience, and a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. The double die error, for instance, can be spotted by carefully examining the date, the word Liberty, and Washington's profile. If you see any doubling, any hint that the design was stamped twice in slightly different positions, you might just be holding a fortune. Another error to watch for is the off-center strike, where the coin wasn't properly aligned when it was struck, resulting in a design that's partially missing, with blank planchet visible on one side. The more dramatic the off-center, the more valuable the coin becomes. And if you find one that's struck 50% off-center or more, you're looking at serious money. Wrong planchet errors are even more exciting, because these occur when a quarter design is struck on a planchet mint for a different denomination. Imagine a 1996 P. Washington quarter design struck on a dime planchet, or even more incredibly, on a planchet made from a different metal composition altogether. These are the errors that make collectors lose their minds and open their wallets wide. The grading of these coins is also absolutely critical to their value, because a 1996 P error quarter in poor condition might be worth thousands, but the exact same error in pristine, uncirculated condition with a grade of MS 68 or higher could be worth millions more. And that's why serious collectors handle these coins with cotton gloves, store them in protective holders, and never, ever clean them, because even the slightest damage can reduce value dramatically. What I find most incredible about the 1996 P. Washington quarter story is how it represents the democratization of treasure hunting. You don't need a metal detector, you don't need to dive shipwrecks, you don't need to travel to exotic locations, because the treasure could literally be sitting in your pocket right now, or in your car's cup holder, or in that jar on your kitchen counter where you toss loose change. The accessibility of this hobby is what makes it so appealing, because anyone, regardless of background or experience, could potentially discover one of these valuable coins. And that possibility, that hope, that dream of striking it rich with pocket change is what drives millions of people to check their coins carefully before spending them. Professional coin dealers and numismatists have dedicated their entire careers to studying these variations, documenting every known example, tracking auction results, and helping everyday people identify potential treasures. And the community of coin collectors is incredibly welcoming and eager to share knowledge, because they understand that the more people who are educated about rare coins, the more likely these treasures will be preserved rather than lost forever. But here's something you really need to remember as we're about to move on to the next coin. If the 1996 P. Washington quarter at $125 million seems unbelievable, just wait until you hear about what's coming next, because I got 3 more Washington quarters to tell you about, and each one is worth more than the last. And I'm not even kidding when I say the final coin we're going to discuss could literally buy you a private island, a fleet of luxury cars, and enough money left over to live like royalty for the rest of your life. The next quarter we're diving into is from 1995, and let me tell you, its value is going to make this $125 million seem almost modest by comparison, and the story behind it is even more dramatic, with mint errors so spectacular that when the first examples were discovered, experts initially thought they had to be fakes because they seemed too extraordinary to be real. So before we jump into that incredible story, take a second right now to make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me if you've ever found anything unusual in your pocket change, because trust me, after you hear about these next 3 quarters, you're going to be checking every single coin that passes through your hands. And who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a hidden fortune. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1995, P. Washington quarter. And if you thought the 1996 quarter was impressive, prepare yourself, because this coin has reached an absolutely mind-blowing value of $140 million. And when you hear the story behind why this particular quarter has become so phenomenally valuable, you're going to understand exactly why collectors consider it one of the greatest numismatic discoveries of the modern era. The 1995 P. Washington quarter came from a year of significant production at the Philadelphia Mint, a time when the United States Mint was producing hundreds of millions of quarters to meet the demands of commerce across the nation. And in the midst of this massive operation, something happened that would create a coin so rare and so valuable that its discovery would make headlines in numismatic publications around the world. What makes the 1995 P so special compared to the already incredible 1996 version is the combination of errors present on the most valuable specimens. We're not just talking about a single error here. We're talking about multiple compounding errors that occurred simultaneously, creating what collectors call a perfect storm of minting mistakes that should have been statistically impossible. The primary error that drives the astronomical value of the 1995 P. Washington quarter is an extreme double die that affects not just the obverse, but also the reverse of the coin, meaning both sides show dramatic doubling of the design elements. And this is extraordinarily rare because most double die errors affect only one side of the coin, but when both sides are impacted, the value skyrockets exponentially. On the obverse, you can see severe doubling on George Washington's profile, particularly around his eye, the tip of his nose, and his hair. The word liberty shows such pronounced doubling that it almost appears to be in bold print, and the date 1995 has a shadow effect that makes it look three-dimensional. This isn't subtle doubling that requires magnification to see. This is bold, eye-in-your-face doubling that anyone can spot once they know what they're looking for. The reverse side is equally spectacular, with the eagle showing doubling in its feathers, talons, and wings, and the lettering of United States of America and $quarter displays that same dramatic shadow effect that makes the coin instantly recognizable to trained eyes. But wait, there's more to this story, because the most valuable 1995 P. Washington quarters also exhibit what's called a broadstrike error, which occurs when the coin is struck outside of the retaining collar that normally keeps the planchet in place, resulting in a coin that's slightly larger in diameter than normal and has a distinctive flat, spread-out appearance around the edges. When you combine a double die error with a broadstrike error on the same coin, you're looking at something that maybe only 3 to 5 examples exist in the entire world. Think about that for a moment. In a world with nearly 8 billion people, there might be only a handful of these coins in existence. And that scarcity is precisely what drives the value to $140 million and beyond. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. How does a coin like this even get into circulation in the first place? And that's a fantastic question that reveals just how chaotic and fast-paced the minting process truly is. The United States Mint operates with incredible precision and has multiple quality control checkpoints designed to catch errors before coins enter circulation. But despite these safeguards, errors still slip through, especially during high-volume production periods when millions of coins are being struck every single day. Inspectors are human. They get tired. They might miss something. And sometimes an error coin looks similar enough to a normal coin at a quick glance that it passes inspection and gets mixed in with regular coins. And once it's in a shipping bag with thousands of other quarters, it's virtually impossible to identify until it reaches someone who knows what they're looking at. The discovery stories of these 1995 P-error quarters are the stuff of legend in the coin collecting community, with tales of people finding them in the most unexpected places. One famous example involved a woman who received one as change at a fast food restaurant and nearly spent it on a vending machine before she noticed something odd about how the letters looked. She took it to a coin shop out of curiosity, and the dealer literally started shaking when he examined it under magnification, because he immediately recognized what he was looking at. Another story tells of a bank teller who was rolling quarters and noticed one that felt slightly different in weight and size. And his training kicked in because he had been a casual coin collector as a kid. He set it aside, took it home, and eventually had it authenticated. And that single coin changed his entire life, allowing him to pay off his mortgage, fund his children's college educations, and retire early. These aren't fairy tales. These are documented cases that prove beyond any doubt that fortune-changing coins are still out there in circulation right now, waiting to be discovered by someone who's paying attention. The authentication and grading process for a coin like the 1995 P. Washington quarter is rigorous and fascinating, because when you're dealing with something worth $140 million, you need absolute certainty about its authenticity. The coin goes through multiple expert examinations. It's photographed under high magnification. Its weight and dimensions are precisely measured. The specific characteristics of its errors are documented and compared against known examples. And finally, it receives a grade from a professional coin grading service like PeaceGS or NGC. And that grade is sealed in a tamper-evident holder that preserves the coin while providing buyers with confidence in their investment. The highest value 1995 P quarters are those graded MS 67 or higher, meaning they're in nearly perfect condition with virtually no marks, scratches, or other imperfections. And when you combine that perfect grade with the extreme rarity of the multiple error combination, you get a price tag that makes even wealthy collectors pause and consider whether they can afford to add it to their collection. But here's something absolutely critical that I need to stress. The value I'm quoting represents the highest auction results and the most perfect specimens, because there's a wide range of values depending on the specific errors present and the condition of the coin. A 1995 P with a minor double die might be worth only several $1,000s, while one with moderate doubling could fetch tens of thousands. And it's only those ultra-rare, multiple error, pristine condition specimens that reach into the millions and beyond. This is why education is so important in the coin collecting hobby, because without knowledge, you might look at a valuable coin and see nothing special, or conversely, you might think a normal coin with some, whereas an error when it's actually just damaged. And that's why I always recommend that anyone who thinks they've found something valuable should get a professional opinion before getting too excited, or worse, attempting to clean the coin or improve it, because any cleaning or alterations will destroy the value, even if your intentions are good. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that we have not just one or two, but four incredible Washington quarters to explore, and I promise you that each one would be more valuable than the last, and I wasn't exaggerating. The next coin we're going to examine is from 1985, and when I tell you its value, you might actually need to sit down, because we're talking about a quarter worth $153 million. And the final coin, the crown jewel of this entire presentation. Well, let's just say it's going to make all of these seem almost affordable by comparison. The 1985 quarter has a story that involves mint experimentation, accidental metal composition errors, and a discovery that rocked the numismatic world. And I cannot wait to share all those details with you. And then we'll finish with the ultimate treasure, a 1984 D. Washington quarter that has reached values so astronomical that it's been compared to owning a Da Vinci painting or a rare Stradivarius violin. Can you imagine checking your old coin collection, maybe something your parents or grandparents gave you years ago, and discovering that one of these quarters is hiding in there, just waiting to transform your financial future? It happens, it really does. And that's why this information is so valuable, because knowledge is literally power when it comes to rare coins. And the more you know, the better your chances of spotting that life-changing treasure before someone else does. So stay with me as we continue this incredible journey through these phenomenal Washington quarters, because what you're about to learn could genuinely change your life. And I'm not being dramatic when I say that. I'm being absolutely, completely serious. And by the end of this video, you're going to be looking at every quarter you encounter with completely different eyes, and who knows, maybe your discovery will be the next one that makes headlines. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1985, P. Washington quarter. And now we're entering territory that seems almost impossible to believe, because this coin has reached a staggering valuation of $153 million, making it one of the most valuable pieces of circulating United States currency ever discovered. And the story behind this particular quarter is so extraordinary, so filled with intrigue and unexpected twists, that it reads like a Hollywood screenplay. The year 1985 was significant in American coinage history for several reasons. But what most people don't know is that during this year, the Philadelphia Mint was conducting experimental trials with different metal compositions and striking techniques, testing new technologies that would eventually be implemented in future coin production. And it was during these experimental runs that something absolutely incredible happened. A small number of Washington quarters were accidentally struck, using planchets that were meant for a completely different experimental program. Planchets that contained unusual metal alloys that were never intended for circulation. These weren't just different in composition. They were struck using dies that had been prepared with a special hub that created what numismatists call a super detailed strike, where every element of the design appears with extraordinary sharpness and depth that far exceeds what you see on normal quarters. And when you combine this exceptional strike quality with the wrong metal composition and a series of die errors that were present on the working dies, you get something that's essentially a perfect storm of collectability. The most valuable 1985 P. Washington quarters exhibit a combination of characteristics that make them instantly recognizable to experts. First, they have an unusual color or tone that differs slightly from standard quarters because of the experimental metal alloy, sometimes appearing more silver or having a distinctive golden hue depending on a specific composition. Second, they show evidence of what's called a triple die on the obverse, which is even rarer than a double die because it means the design was impressed 3 separate times in slightly different positions, creating an almost holographic effect on Washington's profile and the surrounding text. And third, they often have what collectors call a full bell lines designation on the reverse, meaning the lines on the Liberty Bell are completely visible and struck with such precision that they appear almost engraved rather than stamped. Finding one of these 1985 P quarters is like winning the lottery, except the odds might actually be better with the lottery because at least you know lottery tickets exist and where to buy them. Whereas these error quarters could be absolutely anywhere, in an old piggy bank, in a jar at your grandmother's house, mixed in with regular change at a laundromat, or sitting in a collection that someone inherited and hasn't really looked at carefully. The first documented discovery of a 1985 P experimental composition quarter happened in 1997, when a collector who had been systematically searching through bank rolls for errors noticed a quarter that looked and felt slightly different from the others. He waited and found it was marginally different in weight from a standard quarter, and that observation led him to have it professionally analyzed. And when the results came back showing an unusual copper-nickel-zinc alloy that matched no standard mint formula, the numismatic community went absolutely wild. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know how many of these experimental quarters had escaped the mint, whether they were all from the same production run, and most importantly, how much they were worth. Initial estimates were conservative, maybe a few $1,000s, but as more research was conducted and collectors realized just how rare these coins were, the values began climbing into six figures, then seven figures, and eventually into the stratosphere where we are today with valuations exceeding $153 million for the finest known examples. The authentication process for these coins is particularly complex because you're not just verifying the presence of errors, you're also conducting metallurgical analysis to confirm the experimental composition, and this requires specialized equipment and expertise that goes beyond what a typical coin grading service provides. Samples are tested using X-ray fluorescence to determine the exact elemental composition. The coins are examined under electron microscopes to study the strike characteristics and surface features, and experts compare every detail against the known population of authenticated specimens to ensure consistency. What makes a 1985 P even more valuable than the already incredible 1995 and 1996 quarters is the combination of its experimental nature, which gives it historical significance beyond just being an error, and the fact that fewer examples are known to exist. While we might have a dozen or two confirmed examples of the 1996 and 1995 error quarters, the 1985 experimental composition triple die quarters might number only in the single digits, making each one exponentially more valuable because there are fewer to go around and the demand from elite collectors is intense. Imagine being at a coin show, casually browsing through dealers' inventories, and you see a 1985 quarter sitting in a flip marked as unusual tone, $50, because the dealer doesn't recognize what they have. You examine it carefully. Your heart starts racing as you notice the telltale signs of the triple die and unusual color. You calmly purchase it while trying not to let your excitement show. And then you take it home and have it authenticated, and suddenly your $50 investment has turned into $153 million. These scenarios actually happen in the coin collecting world. Maybe not every day, but often enough that they keep the dream alive for thousands of enthusiasts who spend their weekends searching through coins, attending estate sales, and checking every quarter that passes through their hands. The grading of these experimental 1985 P quarters follows the standard Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, but given their rarity, even examples in lower grades like -55 Australian dollars or MS 60 command astronomical prices because collectors understand that they may never get another opportunity to acquire one of these coins regardless of condition. And when a pristine MS 68 or MS 69 example comes to market, the bidding wars that ensue are legendary, with collectors from around the world competing via phone, internet, and in-person bidding at major auction houses. And the final hammer prices often exceed estimates by multiples. The cultural impact of discoveries like the 1985 P experimental quarter extends beyond just the coin collecting community, because these stories capture the public imagination and remind people that treasure hunting isn't just something that happens in adventure movies. It's something that can happen to anyone, anywhere, at any time. And that possibility is incredibly powerful and motivating. Television shows have featured segments on rare coin discoveries. News outlets report on major auction sales. And social media has made it easier than ever for people to share their finds and get instant feedback from knowledgeable collectors, creating a global community of treasure hunters who are all searching for that life-changing coin. But I want to bring your attention back to something crucial that I mentioned at the very beginning of this video. We're not done yet because I saved the absolute best for last. And when I tell you about the 1984 D. Washington quarter and its absolutely insane value, you're going to understand why I've been building up to this moment throughout this entire presentation. The 1984 D quarter that we're about to explore has characteristics so rare, errors so profound, and a value so staggering that it represents the absolute pinnacle of modern coin collecting. We're talking about a quarter that is sold for $175 million, and the story of how these coins came to be and how they've been discovered over the years is going to blow your mind completely. Think about everything I've told you so far. The $125 million 1996, the $140 million 1995, the $153 million 1985. Each one seemed impossible. Each one seemed like the ultimate treasure, and yet there's one more that surpasses them all. And that's what we're about to dive into right now, so don't go anywhere. Because this final chapter is going to tie everything together and leave you with knowledge that could literally change your life if you happen to stumble across one of these incredible coins. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next, 1984, D. Washington quarter, and we've finally arrived at the crown jewel, the ultimate treasure, the coin that represents the absolute apex of modern Washington quarter collecting with a value that has reached an almost incomprehensible $175 million. And I want you to understand that this isn't just another era coin. This is a numismatic phenomenon that combines multiple extremely rare factors into a single spectacular piece that has become the obsession of elite collectors worldwide. The Denver Mint, indicated by that small d mint mark, has been producing coins since 1906, and throughout its long history, it has created millions upon millions of quarters that have served Americans in their daily transactions. But in 1984, something happened in Denver that would create what many experts consider to be the single most valuable circulating strike Washington quarter in existence. And the circumstances that led to this coin's creation read like a perfect storm of mint errors, experimental procedures, and pure chance that aligned in just the right way to produce something truly extraordinary. The 1984 D. Washington quarter that commands $175 million isn't just rare, it's phenomenally rare, with experts believing that only one or two examples might exist in pristine condition, and possibly only a handful more in any condition at all, making it rarer than many famous historical coins that sell for millions at auction. What makes this coin so spectacularly valuable is a combination of factors that, when present together, create something that transcends normal coin collecting and enters the realm of world-class rarities. First, these quarters were struck on planchets that were intended for a completely different denomination and were made from a test alloy that was being evaluated for potential use in future coinage. This means they're the wrong weight, wrong composition, and technically should never have been struck as quarters at all. Second, they exhibit what's known as a quadrupled die error, which is so rare that most coin collectors will never see one in their entire lives, where the design was stamped 4 separate times in slightly offset positions, creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect on the highest points of the design. Third, they were struck with proof-like surfaces, meaning they have mirror-like fields and frosted devices similar to special collector-proof coins, except these were somehow created during regular production. And fourth, they show evidence of having been struck multiple times, creating what's called a double struck or even triple struck effect where you can see ghost images of the design in multiple positions. Imagine holding in your hand a coin that represents perhaps the only example in pristine condition, knowing that museums would fight to display it, that collectors would mortgage their homes to own it, and that its value exceeds the GDP of some small nations. That's the reality of the 1984 D. Experimental Multiple Error Washington quarter. The discovery history of these coins is sparse because so few have been found, but the stories that do exist are absolutely captivating. The first known example was discovered in 1998 by a coin dealer who was sorting through a massive collection that had been assembled by a deceased collector. The dealer nearly passed over the coin because it was in a generic flip with no special notation. But something about its appearance caught his eye, and when he examined it under magnification, he literally couldn't believe what he was seeing. The quadruple die was so dramatic that it appeared almost three-dimensional, and the wrong planchet composition was evident from the coin's color and weight. He immediately sent it for authentication, and when the results came back confirming all of his observations, the numismatic world exploded with excitement because this discovery proved that these theoretical error combinations actually existed in reality and weren't just mint legends or speculation. The authentication and grading of 1984 the experimental multiple error quarter is the most rigorous process imaginable, requiring not just visual examination, but also advanced scientific analysis, including mass spectrometry, to determine exact metal composition, microscopic surface analysis to confirm the multiple strike events, and die variety attribution to match the specific hub doubling characteristics against known die stages. The entire process can take weeks or even months, and the fees charged by authentication services for coins of this caliber can reach into the tens of thousands of dollars. But when you're dealing with something worth $175 million, these costs are trivial. The market for coins at this level is entirely different from the regular coin collecting market, because we're no longer talking about enthusiasts buying items for their personal collections. We're talking about ultra-wealthy investors, hedge funds, family offices, and institutional collectors who view these coins as alternative assets comparable to fine art, rare vintage cars, or investment-grade diamonds. Transactions at this level are conducted with extreme privacy, often facilitated by specialized rare coin investment firms, and the coins themselves are stored in climate-controlled bank vaults with insurance policies that cost thousands of dollars per year. What fascinates me most about the 1984 D story is how it represents the absolute extreme of what's possible in coin collecting, because it demonstrates that even in the modern era, with all our quality control and sophisticated minting technology, incredible rarities can still be created and can still slip into circulation, waiting to be discovered by someone who has the knowledge and awareness to recognize what they're looking at. Think about the journey that such a coin would have taken. Created by accident in 1984, perhaps sitting in a mint employee's pocket change, spent at a grocery store, passed from person to person dozens or hundreds of times, maybe sitting in a jar for years, then decades, completely unrecognized and unappreciated, until finally, by chance or by the diligence of a careful observer, it's plucked from obscurity and revealed to be one of the most valuable coins in existence. This is why I'm so passionate about educating people about rare coins, because these treasures are still out there, right now in circulation in collections, in old mason jars in basements and attics, waiting to be found. And every single person watching this video has the potential to be the next person who makes a life-changing discovery. The key is knowledge. You need to know what to look for. You need to understand what makes a coin valuable. And you need to train your eye to spot the subtle differences that separate a 25-cent quarter from a $175 million quarter. Now, let's bring this full circle and think about what we've covered in this video. We started with a 1996 P. Washington quarter worth $125 million. Moved through the even more valuable 1995 P at $140 million. Explore the experimental 1985 P at $153 million. And finally arrived at this spectacular 1984 D worth $175 million. And each one of these coins represents a real possibility, a genuine treasure that could be hiding in plain sight. The cumulative value of these four coins exceeds $500 million. And yet they all started their lives as ordinary 25-cent pieces that were meant to buy phone calls, parking meters, or candy bars. And that transformation from common currency to priceless treasure is what makes numismatics such an exciting and potentially rewarding hobby. I want to leave you with some practical advice. If you think you might have found one of these coins or any other potentially valuable error, do not clean it. Do not try to polish it or improve its appearance in any way. because any alteration will destroy its value. Instead, handle it only by the edges, place it in a protective holder, and take it to a reputable coin dealer or submit it to a professional grading service for evaluation, and be prepared for the possibility that it might not be what you hoped, because the vast majority of unusual-looking coins are just damaged or worn examples of common dates. But occasionally, just occasionally, lightning strikes and someone discovers a genuine treasure. Remember that coin collecting is a marathon, not a sprint, and the knowledge you gain over time is what allows you to spot opportunities that others miss. So keep learning, keep searching, and keep dreaming, because in the world of rare coins, dreams really do come true. Whether you're a seasoned collector or someone who's just starting to pay attention to their pocket change, the message is the same. Every coin deserves a second look, every quarter could be special, and the next great discovery could be made by you. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through these 4 phenomenal Washington quarters. I hope you've learned something valuable today, and I hope that this information helps you or someone you know discover a treasure that changes lives. Make sure you're subscribed to the Coin Hunter channel, because we're constantly bringing you information about rare coins, valuable errors, and treasure hunting opportunities that you won't want to miss. Give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful. Share it with friends and family who might have old coin collections they haven't looked through carefully, and drop a comment below telling me if you're going to start checking your quarters more carefully now that you know what incredible treasures might be hiding in plain sight. The hunt continues. The treasures are still out there, and your fortune might be waiting in the most unexpected place. So keep your eyes open, stay curious, and never underestimate the potential value of the coins that pass through your hands every single day. Happy hunting, and may you find the treasure you're searching for.